Hey, everybody. Today we're diving into how modern enterprise IT teams are managing devices and automation and AI driven operations and scaling for admins by admins at PDQ. Jaren, how are you?
I'm doing great, Evan. Glad to be with you. Glad to talk about the topic as well.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Before that, maybe introduce yourself, your journey to PDQ, and how do you describe yourselves these days?
Yeah, no, great question. So I've been with PDQ for about 6 years now. It's been a fun journey. My whole career has been spent in tech, so love to dive in, love to help IT teams whenever, however, wherever I can. PDQ, we would describe ourselves. I think our probably our mission is maybe the best way to state it. We make device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick. The PDQ does stand for the quick in there. I think going back from our roots, is built by sysadmins. We keep that as for sysadmins. We keep that in our DNA. We want to make sure that we really give every tool to IT teams to help them be successful.
Brilliant. Well, you make it sound so simple. Of course, it's very complex, and teams are struggling when it comes to patching and software updates, deployments, asset visibility, and on and on and on. What are they working through most? What are the big challenges you see out there today?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, so we started in 2001, and like a lot of the problems you have back then are still existing today. It's just taking a different form, or maybe even just a different scale. And so, if you look at it, kind of our origin story was our founders were sysadmins, and they used tools like Tivoli. That was really nice for enterprise to be able to do patch management, deploy applications, to get software on computers, but also have visibility of what's going on in an environment. And they really wanted to bring that into smaller businesses. And so what was interesting is I would say tech teams or IT teams were pretty quick to adopt a way to do this manually. They went from what was more of a maybe a sneaker net where you walk from computer to computer to really kind of put in the new updates or the new applications to be able to do it centralized and automated. They adopted that automation as fast as they can. Today you're seeing that extension. You're just seeing automations because if you have new problems that are emerging, or you're having maybe more applications than you have ever had to manage. I think AI is probably giving another software sprawl there as well. And so really it's how can we do this in an efficient way that gives them control, understanding, visibility, and success as they want to keep all their devices secure.
Brilliant. And so automation, of course, and AI get thrown around a lot these days, but maybe talk about where it's delivering real value from your point of view for admins today.
Yeah, and I'd say maybe admins probably have two ways in their mind. I would say maybe the first is attacks that we can hit on maybe a little bit more later too, but or another time. But if another team, so let's take your marketing or let's take your finance team, and they find a tool that they think really makes them more productive. So maybe an example would be, hey, we have an FP&A tool, so financial planning tool that helps build our models for us using AI. Well, they're going to rely on the sysadmin or the IT team to make sure that that software is up running. If there's an issue, now the IT team has to become an expert in it. So in some ways, like not helping the IT team is really just the kind of sprawl they have of more responsibility, software that maybe they weren't really as involved in the selection or in the implementation, but now have the responsibility for. So that's the tax that might be beneficial to the company, but really a tax on IT teams. Now, if you look at IT teams, like where can they use AI or where have they used AI to be successful? I think we kind of have the perspective, or I have the perspective, there's maybe three different areas that you can really kind of get that benefit from. One is just your research. It's the how to. I think this is where you and I use it LLM all the time. Hey, I want to know how to do this on an application. I want to do this faster. It's maybe faster than contacting support, reading the help docs myself. The second is maybe the next unlock that we're really starting to hit, and that's more of maybe the analyst skill set. So I want to build this report for me. I need to see every device that has an outdated version, and I don't want to do the if then else statements myself, but I want this to kind of really have a visibility into my environment, and that would be maybe like think of it as an analyst or help desk to really whether it's troubleshooting, building a report, something to help me better understand what's going on. And then the third unlock for our sysadmins or for IT teams is really more that executive function. Help me build this, help me do that, help me create a policy, help me create something. So I think that's how we're thinking of it. I think we're at different levels of those three. But that's where we're trying to make sure that we support on all three of those levels.
Makes sense. And when you talk to customers, what's the most common? This shouldn't be that hard moment they share with you.
This shouldn't be that hard moment. So I would say, the thing that they want to make sure they get right and needs to be right is the both security and transparency. And so whether it's using our tool, whether it's using other tools, like they want to make sure who has access to what information. Does the software have access to the right information? Does the user have access to the right information? Am I trying to fail safe it so no one shares the wrong information? And so that's those are table stakes. Like maybe that is a hard problem to solve, but it's really a simple ideal or a simple policy that you want to make sure is right and need to have visibility to. So I'd say a lot of conversations will go around okay, what can this do? What permissions does it have? And how do I make this not into a black box, but really see what is happening and know kind of the chain of command or the chain of execution orders?
Interesting. So many kinds of new devices out there, and people are distributed, working from everywhere. How do you think about bringing smarter automation into device management without overcomplicating it? What are your customers kind of asking for at the moment?
Yeah. So I would say a couple of things we've seen, and maybe if I take a step back, that isn't just AI centric, but is kind of shifts that we've seen over the last 4 to 5 years. So one has been there was a time where you asked a sysadmin if you would rather have custom built tools to do their specific job to be done. So let's take the example of imaging. I want to image my Windows computer with a golden image so they all have the same ones, or maybe they all have the same ones depending on what department they're in. And then a different tool maybe to do patching, and then maybe a different tool to do remote desktop, or a different tool to do monitoring and alerts. And I'd say there was a mix. Maybe half the group was saying, I want a pane of glass, and half the group was saying, hey, I actually want like custom built applications for each one. And so I'd say one shift that we're seeing is more and more are now starting to really lean in towards the single pane of glass. For them, they want this to be a simpler UI, more power, more control at their fingertips. And as you start to kind of layer on AI, is it that you need to actually be able to, through an MCP or through other means, talk to one AI tool that our kind of agents will do work on behalf of a request from another? Like that could be a natural movement. So there's one. I think the second area that we're kind of seeing the shift is you used to have maybe a little more specialization too within IT teams. So 5-10 years ago, you might have 3 Windows admins, so sysadmin probably is what you'd call them, and then you'd have your Mac admin, and they didn't always communicate. They weren't always doing the same things. And I think you're starting to see a consolidation. I think you've started to see that already very strongly, a consolidation of I need to be a little bit of an expert on every type of thing. And that's not just device types. It's not just MDM. It's not just OS. But it also might be I need to be an expert on networking, or at least have some competency to know when to pull in network or pull in an expert. Or I need to have competencies around even DevOps. You're starting to see IT teams and DevOps really come closer together. So as you think about the number of devices, you have to think of both, like we're trying to do more jobs to be done, but you also have a higher expectation for your IT teams to really understand each different type of device, each different OS, and each different execution of what I need to accomplish with that device.
Interesting. So, you talk a lot about truly admin-friendly tools, and what's behind that in terms of UI, UX, onboarding, support?
Yeah,
and other kinds of pillars as well.
Yeah, great question. I'd say this. So when I came to PDQ, I paused for a long time. Is this the next step I want to take in my journey? And it might not be that different than when someone chooses a software tool that you're making a big investment in. You do a little research, right? And one of the things that was interesting is. I don't know, Evan, if you go a lot on Reddit, but I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this do go on Reddit. Yep, yeah. And there tends to be a little bit of a skeptical skewing of perception on Reddit. So whatever topic you're talking about, you get a healthy dose of skepticism. And then if you go into the IT communities within Reddit, I think that amplifies a little bit too. And PDQ was kind of had almost like a special reverence of hey, a lot of promoters for it. And I think one of the reasons and what we believe, yes, I could talk a second about our UI and about how we make things simpler. But really, I think the quick is really what makes a promoter. I think that the fast feedback loop, that it gets the job done and you see it completed rather than it's a set and I have no clue when this is really getting done, is something that's going to give us, it's going to give us two advantages. One, it gives the confidence to the user that the job is actually being done. But two, it also gives them the ability to tell us when it's not working because they saw it perform quickly. So like we are very much committed to being as fast as we can at finding any outcome that they want, at showing them that outcome and really getting there. Now, how do we keep it simple? I think that's going to be something that's going to be a lot of staying close to our community, getting their feedback as well, similar to the job completion. But we don't want someone to say they have to hire a PDQ expert in order to do it. And I think you're seeing that general spectrum in consumer apps 10, 15 years ago with Apple. And I think you're seeing that more in technology apps too. Someone can pick it up and run with it. And that's what our hope is for sure.
Brilliant. Lovely approach. The whole industry has gone all in on AI for IT operations, no secret. A lot of it's hype and marketing, of course. But, where is AI, do you think, still more hype than marketing, even if you look out this year? Where is the industry pushing is an unrealistic expectation?
Yeah. And we do an annual State of the Sysadmin survey, and so that's an interesting data point for us. We see a lot of kind of a lot of mixture of two feelings that you just stated. You see some optimism of like, wow, what could this be? And if we came back, 94% of sysadmins right now see ways that AI could help them. And they, again, this is to get 94% of any group to say something like that is pretty high for sure. And then if you double click on that, they say, hey, look, if I were to categorize how much of let's just take endpoint management, how much of that could be automated ideally, so in the long run, or maybe in the short run, in the 5 years, is kind of how we frame that. 73% of their work they believed could, or not their work, 73% of endpoint management potentially could be. So you have the question of like, A, where are we at today? And B, what's left in that 25 to 30% that we just don't want to automate at this point or don't see a way? I think AI is really good at saying, here's a lot of help documentation. Can you now have a one-on-one conversation with me to see how am I doing this and why am I doing it incorrectly? Or it's that second category of like, let's analyze a specific instance. It's not great at analyzing holistic ones in my environment, but if I say, hey, I tried to deploy this application and here are my error logs. Can you use someone else's help desk or maybe it's PDQs, maybe it's someone else, and diagnose what is wrong and where it happened so I don't need to spend the time going through the logs? That's where AI is going to crush it. When it says where we want to go next, though, and when I say we, I hopefully mean as an industry, is, hey, I want to be able to set a policy, and I want AI to think of all the if, then, else statements to make that policy accurate. And so my policy might be, I need to have, maybe it's a security posture, right? Like I need to make sure that my applications that are high security, high vulnerability are if it needs to be up to date within 24 hours of a patch, but there's some that maybe need to be less. And I don't want to articulate which software goes in which bucket. In the old today, you would actually have to, you create literally a policy with every single software and every iteration, say which one it is and what it is. Hopefully in the future, I just want it to kind of categorize on its own and I need to review it. And I think we're not there yet. I think people believe we're there, but I think it takes a lot of really, you almost spend as much time arguing with the AI as you do of getting it to the outcome you want. And so I think there's the first opportunity. Maybe I'll touch on a second one is, if you wanted to build a script, if it's a simple script, sometimes it's as good as my inputs. A simple script, say, hey, this is what I want it to do. Another outcome-based statement. It can build a script for you. If it's complex, it isn't. And sometimes you don't really know, is it the AI can't do it? Am I not articulating it well? And so when you have tools like Claude that walk you through every step, you can start to diagnose the problem. But I think until we get better at really saying, where are we either miscommunicating or where is its capacity or can't it do it? I think building is still going to be taking ambiguous items and building and trying to execute on policies is an area that we have more hype than we actually have results at this point. Diagnosing issues is an area that we probably are still strong.
Interesting. So legacy tools have been around forever, and they just seem to go the way of the fax machine. They live on and on and on. But where do they start to break down, given the new environments we're in? And do you see a time when we'll deal with some of that technical debt, as it were?
Yeah, it's funny. I think of so there used to be a conversation of when is everything going to move to the cloud, and everybody had their timelines, and then you get into a world of saying like, you know what, I think hybrid is here for a lot longer than I
Mm,
really anticipated, and it's going to be the same way with software. Like legacy tools are going to have a much longer life than everybody believes. At the same time, though, there's going to be some faster shorter life cycles for some software than we probably anticipate. But what I would say is I expect a hybrid approach there. You are going to find your key software tools that you just rely on are tried and true, are low effort, are high reliability, high security, and you're going to probably not change those out for a long time. Conversely, you're going to find some that just have leaps and bounds better improvements, and you're going to be willing to make that shift to that new product and leave your legacy apart. But I would say both things are true here, where some
mhm.
things will be shorter lived than you have, but I suspect hybrid between legacy and new software is going to be around for a very long time.
Makes sense. So if we were to have this conversation in a year or two or three, what would the next generation of IT operations look like from a sysadmin standpoint if you get it right?
Yeah. I mean, if we get it right, there's a couple things you're doing. One is you're going to be able to have more visibility into things and in a way that you can be a policy driven world or say, I want to accomplish this objective. I see the sysadmin as more of like the chief executive for devices. I want to make sure that these things are what's happening. And I have AI telling me, A, this is a time it looks like it's not going correctly. B, here are the ways that we have fixed it already. And C, this is like where we're uncertain. Can you help clarify the objective for us? And in a world that in 5 to 10 years, we get to that. And so IT teams are chief executives. They're able to better execute fast. They're able to have visibility and be able to make decisions based on information a lot more clear. The second thing I think IT teams will do is I just think I think now is the best time to become a sysadmin or IT because I think their sphere of influence is just growing. It's growing. Again, we went from being I was a sysadmin or I was just a help desk person to I was a sysadmin. Now I have to do Mac admin. Now I have to do networking. I just see that continuing to sprawl. I think by nature, IT teams are looked at as most people who went into IT were known. They almost fell into IT because they were a curious person. And I think that happens to be the center of belief in most organizations where, hey, whether it's them helping with DevOps more, obviously SecOps is something we're seeing merge already as well. I just see that their sphere of influence will become grander. They'll be able to say whether it's a production I'm a software company, whether they're the ones who are more looking at, hey, how about our applications? How are they doing? I see IT really focusing more on that as well. I think their sphere of influence will grow as they're able to get visibility, execute better, and really kind of set the objectives for the organization.
Brilliant. So just to wrap up, what are you excited about over the next weeks, months, as we head into the year? What's on your mind, event-wise, roadmap-wise, team-wise? What's on the radar?
Yeah, no, we're pretty excited. So we have we have a product that is our newer product that we're really heavily investing in for our AI kind of tooling. And so
Mhm.
so one of the couple things that we named already. So we're going to be able to start helping people build their own scripts. So right now people do it on their own. We're excited about that. It's already kind of in process. We're moving over to your point, Evan, on legacy products. So we actually have a product that I wouldn't call it legacy, but it is our on-prem. We're just seeing an adoption to our cloud base being so significant because of integrations, because of AI. So we're really excited about that. The kind of the fervor in our community is probably stronger than it's ever been for those who are adopting our new tooling. And then for me personally, like I'm always enjoying the good weather. I got out a little bit to Universal Studios last weekend, so excited for some good weather on that. But PDQ proper itself, like this is a time where you're going to see inflection points in software that we look back on and say this is maybe at a race once in a lifetime potentially, right? Or at least once in a generation. And so I think the next 3 to 5 years has our team more enthusiastic about what our software capabilities could do. And I think we're going to execute on that in the next 6 months, where you're really saying, hey, this is how I can use help to make sure that my environment is more secure, is up to date, and make sure device management is simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.
Wow. Well, that's a mic drop moment. So, on that note, congratulations on all the success and onwards and upwards.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Evan.
Thanks. And thanks, everyone, for listening, watching. Also, check out our TV show, techimpact.tv, on Bloomberg Television and Fox Business. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jaron.